All right, what is up, oopsies. All right, what is up, fantasy fans? As always, I'm Shay from the channel Zachary Shay, and today I'm going to bring you a review of one of my favorite historical fiction novels I've ever read, and one of the best book ones in a trilogy I have read in a long time, and that is Wolf Hall by Hilary Mantel. It is the absence of facts that frightens people, the gap you open into which they pour their fears, fantasies, desires. Some of these things are true, and some of them lies, but they are all good stories. It is all very well planning what you will do in 6 months, what you will do in a year, but it's no good at all if you don't have a plan for tomorrow. Why are we so attached to the severities of the past? Why are we so proud of having endured our fathers and our mothers, the fireless days and the meatless days, the cold winters and the sharp tongues? It's not as if we had a choice. He thinks, I remembered you, Thomas More, but you didn't remember me. You never even saw me coming. Now, there are some things, whenever I went to leave my Goodreads review, I saw on there a lot of 1-star and 2-star reviews calling out a specific stylistic choice that Hilary Mantel had with her writing, and that was every time you see the word he, well, not every time, I don't want to say in broad terms, every time you see the word he, it is referring to Cromwell. For most of the book, when you see the word he, it is referring to Cromwell, and then other men are referred to by their proper nouns, other men, women, other characters are referred to by their proper nouns. And she'll remind you of this sometimes. It'll say he, Cromwell, and then it will continue. And it is a very interesting stylistic choice that somehow conveys a lot of intimacy between the reader and Cromwell. This is some of the most intimate third person I've ever read. Though I think first person probably would have been hard to do with this sort of historical figure, but she does third person so remarkably well. And while this story does have a wide cast of characters, while there are a ton of great characters like Thomas More, like Rafe, like Richard, like Marion Anne Boleyn, it is very much Cromwell's story. He is the star of the show, and oh man, he is such an amazing character. He's one of my favorite characters of the year. There's a line in here, so a lot of the relationships in here I think are really well done. There's the relationship between Cromwell and his 2 wards and his son. There's the relationship between Cromwell and Anne of Boleyn, as he's kind of hedging a lot of his family's success on the marriage between Henry and Anne. So if Anne goes down, he goes down too. And if you know historically what happens, well, he'll probably get his comeuppance in these next 2 books. But yeah, you see him as he sort of persuades the king of different things. There's this amazing sequence where the king has a nightmare and Cromwell speaks to him about what the nightmare should mean and what it could mean. He's the great persuader. In fact, there's a line in here, I think Anne Boleyn says it, but I'm not sure. But it's the king says, if you were to leave Thomas Cromwell in the jail, by the time you come back overnight, by the time you come back in the morning, the guards will be owing him money. And that's true. Like the way she writes Cromwell, Hilary Mantel writes Thomas Cromwell, he is 10 steps ahead of all of his adversaries. And it is so enthralling seeing this son of a blacksmith become the advisor to someone like King Henry VIII. And do we know that all these characterizations are accurate? Do we know, like, Cromwell, probably not as great as she paints him to be. Was Anne of Boleyn as evil as she is in this book? We don't know. Was Mary Boleyn as much of a straight up victim as she is in this book? Or was she complicit in some of these actions? We don't know. Was King Henry VIII as much of an incel in real life? Probably. Yeah, that one. Yeah, for sure. I still love seeing the relationship between Henry and Cromwell. And it reminded me a lot of the relation, well, drastically different, but the way the relationship shows the difference between the common man and the king reminded me a lot of Christopher Rocchio's Sun Eater, because a lot of different nobility in that series look down on Hadrian Marlowe. You know, he's the son of this house that is not very prominent. And in this, you know, Cromwell, he's the son of a blacksmith, and a lot of people look down on him. But the thing about being a monarch, being a ruler of men, is that inherently brings about a feeling of isolation. So you don't really, I don't think kings care how highly bred, or at least many kings don't care how highly bred their counselors are, their advisors are, because to them, everyone should be kept at a distance. Everyone owes allegiance to him. So what would be the difference for him between a blacksmith's son and the son of a duke? And you see the relationship forming between Cromwell and King Henry, and the dependency that Henry has for Cromwell, how he kind of defers to Cromwell, needs his advice for a lot of things. You see Cromwell grow and become more powerful within the court of King Henry, even despite his low birth. And it is just a fascinating ride. It's very enthralling watching this man climb up from where he came from. And he's a lot more noble in this book than he probably was in real life, but he's still not a one-to-one hero. He's very Tyrion Lannister-esque in a way. And, oh man, it is such a beautiful book. So I'm going to go into slight spoilers, but I mean, if you know the historical events around this book, I really don't think they can be spoiled. I don't think this is a book that if you find out different plot points, you're going to be spoiled, because most of the plot points are historical fact. It is the way that these events transpire and what the characters think of them and how they react. And Hilary Mantel's amazing prose and dialogue that you really need to experience for yourself by reading. But there was the scene where she paints the picture. The rulers of England descend from Troy, who then descend from these sort of children of giants or half giants, these sort of ethereal. I think it's supposed to tie in like the divine right of kings, that these kings hail from a otherworldly, ethereal descent, that they're godlike in a way. And the way she world builds within our own world it's not something I've ever seen done in a historical fiction novel before. A lot of another example is after the death of his daughter and wife, Cromwell has these visions during Hallows Eve where he sees like the different ghosts, and they talk about how Hallows Eve, it was believed that different pagan beliefs that the souls of the dead could come back and visit you, and Cromwell has these visions. And was he just tired, or were those ghosts there? He sees some things that he did not experience. Very interesting stuff. The way she's able to world build almost makes it feel like a fantasy novel in a way. I think fans of Malazan would really love that aspect. The way that Malazan will paint a picture of a scene that occurred 1,000 years ago and then brings you starkly back into the present. She does things like that, and it's so remarkably well done. I definitely loved the relationship between Cromwell and Rafe and Richard and Gregory. Even though it was funny, Gregory was always the butt of the joke. He felt like Meg from Family Guy. Like they'd always be like, "Shut up, Gregory." Like they'd always be like, "Well, your idiot son, Gregory." And he wasn't even stupid. It's just Cromwell's like a super genius tactician when it comes to court politics. Rafe is very, very capable, and Richard is very smart. So Gregory was just the average one. Poor Gregory. Rafe, I loved the relationship between that ward specifically and Cromwell. He was very capable. Loved following him as well. Though he does sacrifice some at the sight of a comely woman, because he if you've read the book, you know what I'm talking about. He definitely is not without his failings, at least in the eyes of Cromwell. Oh, the relationship between Anne Boleyn and Cromwell is captivating, because both of them kind of hold power over one another, because he knows things about her, but she also knows that his family and their standing is dependent upon her marriage with the king. King Henry, like I said, the isolation that comes with ruling a nation has him almost reaching out to Cromwell as a brother figure, as a confidant. At a certain point, he says, "I believe you were put in here to understand me in the way that other men never could." You see this bond forming between Cromwell and Henry, though it doesn't really go both ways. I don't think Henry has that much respect. I don't think Cromwell has that much respect for Henry, but Henry obviously views Cromwell in a very flattering light. And that's kind of throughout the book. Cromwell is continuously hyped up, but I love it. I think Hilary Mantel brought this historical character to life with such a fresh and imaginative voice. This is easily one of my favorite historical fiction novels of all time. It's one of my favorite book ones in a trilogy that I've ever read. I highly, highly recommend you should check it out. Some other viewpoints I want to talk about. I don't know if Anne of Boleyn is as vile in history as she was depicted in this book. I do know that my heart broke for Mary, for the way that King Henry used her, and that was really sad. It's just, I have so many emotions about this book. I'm really nervous and anxious to see where things go in books 2 and 3, because as we know historically, Cromwell will get his comeuppance. But, oh man, it is such a electrifying ride to follow Thomas Cromwell, and I definitely am reading books 2 and 3. If you want more articulated thoughts and less just me rambling at the camera, you can check out my Goodreads. I'll link it down below. And as always, guys, thank you for watching. Peace.